Let me ask you something. What is worse than dying alone in total darkness, a kilometer underground, dying the exact same way twice, and having the proof of your first death watch you while you die the second time? This is not a ghost story. This is a story about a cave in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, a cave that the locals call Dua Guri, the second mouth. They say that once you enter, the cave decides whether you leave. And if it decides you don't, it keeps something from you. A memory, a footprint, a shadow. And then, years later, it shows you what it kept. This is the story of Mihai Popescu, a 34-year-old cave diver from Cluj-Napoca. He was one of the best in Eastern Europe. He had explored flooded tunnels in Mexico, vertical shafts in the Alps, and the infamous Muval Cave, where the air is poisonous and the bacteria eat sulfur. Mihai was fearless. He was also obsessive. He kept a journal of every dive, every rock, every drop of water. He wrote things like, "Today I touched a stalactite that last felt human breath 12,000 years ago. I left my fingerprint. In 12,000 years, someone else will find it." That kind of romantic obsession is beautiful, until it kills you. The cave known as Dua Guri was discovered in 1978 by a Romanian speleologist named Dr. Adrian Voicu. He mapped the first 800 meters and then stopped. His notes, which were locked in a university archive for 40 years, contained a single handwritten warning in red ink. Below 800 meters, the geometry becomes impossible. Do not trust your compass. Do not trust your eyes. And if you hear a voice that sounds exactly like your mother's, climb. Do not look back. It is not your mother. Dr. Voica died in 2019 at the age of 89. He never returned to the cave. On his deathbed, he grabbed his daughter's hand and whispered, "Promise me you will never let anyone go down there. The cave is hungry." It learned to mimic. His daughter thought he was delirious. She was wrong. In 2021, Mihai Popescu obtained a copy of Dr. Voicu's original maps from a colleague at the University of Bucharest. He saw the red warning. He smiled. He later told his girlfriend, Andrea, "Old men get scared of their own shadows. I am not old yet." Andrea begged him not to go. She was 7 months pregnant with their first child, a daughter they had already named Anna. Mihai promised he would be careful. He promised he would go with a team. He promised he would turn back at the first sign of trouble. He broke every single promise. On the morning of June 3, 2021, Mihai drove his battered Dacia Logan to the village of Giab, population 312. He told the innkeeper he was going hiking. He did not mention the cave. He parked by an old forestry road and walked 3 hours through beech forests and limestone scree. The entrance to Dua Guri is not a hole in the ground. It is a vertical crack in a cliff face, shaped exactly like a pair of lips, 2 meters wide at the top, narrowing to a slit at the bottom. The locals have nailed a small wooden cross above the crack. On the cross, someone carved, "New Intrasingur, do not enter alone." Mihai took a photo of the cross. He sent it to Andrea with a single text, "Starting descent. I love you. I love Anna. I will be home on Sunday." He turned off his phone. He repacked his gear. He had a full cave diving setup, 2 side-mounted cylinders of nitrox, a backup rebreather, a dry suit, a helmet with 3 lights, a handheld sonar for underwater mapping, and a waterproof case containing his journal and a pack of instant coffee. He weighed 45 kilograms of equipment. He was 1.88 meters tall and built like a rock climber, lean, wiry, with fingers that looked like they were made of piano wire and gristle. He tied his rope to a birch tree, checked the anchor 3 times, and lowered himself into the crack. The first 200 meters were tight, not technically difficult, but claustrophobic. The walls were covered in a damp, gray biofilm that smelled like wet dog and old coins. Mihai had to exhale completely to squeeze through one particular pinch point called the corset. His ribcage compressed. He felt his heart pound against his sternum. He later wrote in his journal, "I thought I would have to break my own collarbone to pass. But I didn't." The cave opened. It always opens when it wants you inside. At 200 meters, the crack widened into a small chamber the size of a living room. Mihai called this the foyer. Here, he found the first evidence of previous explorers, a rusted piton hammered into the wall, dated 1978. Next to it, someone had scratched a message in the soft limestone. "I saw them. They saw me. We agreed to forget.
Mihai laughed.
He wrote in his journal, "Drama queens, these old speleologists." He drank some water, ate a protein bar, and continued down. The next 300 meters were a series of steep, sloping passages covered in loose rock. This is the most dangerous type of terrain in any cave, scree slopes, that can shift with a single footstep and bury you alive. Mihai moved slowly, testing every handhold. He was an expert. He had done this 100 times. But at 470 meters, the floor gave way beneath his left foot. He slid 15 meters down a chute of broken limestone, tearing the knee of his dry suit. He stopped just before a vertical drop into darkness. He looked down. The drop was at least 60 meters. He could see water at the bottom, black, still like a mirror made of oil. He checked his knee. The dry suit was punctured. Cold water seeped in. The temperature in the cave was 4 degrees Celsius. He had a repair kit, a patch of neoprene, and some glue. He sat on a ledge, patched the suit, and wrote in his journal, "Almost died. Would have been a stupid death. Note to self, don't die stupidly." He did not turn back. He rigged a rappel and descended the 60-meter drop. The rope sang against the rock. The sound echoed up the shaft like a violin being slowly murdered. When he reached the bottom, he stepped into water up to his waist. This was the beginning of the flooded section, a subterranean river that Dr. Voicu had mapped for another 200 meters before it disappeared into a siphon. Mihai switched to his diving configuration. He donned his mask, activated his primary light, and began to swim. The underwater passage was narrow, barely wider than his shoulders. He had to pull himself along the ceiling using his fingers. The current was slow but steady. He could feel it tugging at his fins, trying to pull him deeper. He checked his dive computer. Depth 112 meters below the surface entrance. Water temperature 2 degrees Celsius. Oxygen pressure 210 bar. He had 90 minutes of bottom time. He swam for what felt like an hour. The passage twisted left, then right, then left again. His light beam illuminated walls covered in translucent cave shrimp, blind, white, ancient. They scattered from the light like disturbed snow. At one point, his light caught something else. A reflection. Not rock, not water, glass. He stopped. He reached out. His fingers touched the smooth curve of a glass lens. Pair of eyeglasses. Old-fashioned round frames, like something from the 1970s. They were lying on a small ledge, perfectly preserved, held down by a layer of clear calcite. Next to the glasses was a wedding ring, gold. Engraved on the inside, ADV and MCV 1975. Mihai knew those initials, Dr. Adrian Voicu, and his wife, Maria Cristina Voicu. But Maria had never entered a cave. She was a schoolteacher. She died in 1998 of breast cancer. How did her wedding ring get here, 500 meters underground, inside a flooded passage that only 3 people had ever seen? Mihai took the ring. He put it in the pocket of his dry suit. He continued swimming. 20 meters further, the passage opened into an air pocket, a small dome with a ceiling of glittering gypsum crystals. He surfaced. He removed his regulator. The air in the pocket was breathable, but strange. Tasted like metal and old flowers. He shone his light around the dome. The walls were covered in writing. Hundreds of messages, scratched into the gypsum, in different languages. Romanian, Hungarian, German, Russian, and one in English that said, "I am not dead. I am just very far from my body." Mihai felt the first real pang of fear. Not because of the messages, because of the silence. There was no silence in a normal cave. There is always the drip of water, the creak of rock, the whisper of air. Here there was nothing. It was like the cave had stopped breathing. He wrote in his journal, "I found Dr. Voicu's wife's ring. It makes no sense. She never came here, unless she did, unless he brought her, unless she never left." He put the journal away. He decided to push just a little further. The map showed another 50 meters of underwater passage before a second air chamber. He wanted to see that chamber. He wanted to leave his name next to Dr. Voicu's. He dived again. The second underwater passage was shorter, but tighter. He had to remove one of his tanks to squeeze through a constriction. His back scraped against the ceiling. His helmet light hit a rock and cracked. One of his 3 lights died. He was down to 2. He kept going. He surfaced in the second air chamber. This one was larger, about the size of a garage. The ceiling was covered in something he had never seen before. Stalactites made of ice. Blue, translucent, dripping slowly into a pool of water that reflected his light like a mirror. But ice does not form in a cave that is permanently above freezing. The water in this chamber was 2 degrees, cold enough for ice. But the air was 15 degrees. The ice should have melted. It wasn't melting. It was growing. He could see it. Tiny crystals forming on the tips of the stalactites, growing like fingernails. He reached up to touch one. His finger went through it. Not ice. Something else. A gel. A cold, solid gel that broke apart into dry dust when touched. The dust smelled like burnt sugar and almonds. Cyanide. Very faint. Not enough to kill. Enough to make you dream. Mihai started to feel strange. His thoughts became slow, thick, like honey pouring uphill. He sat down on a dry rock. He took off his mask. He tried to write in his journal, but his fingers would not hold the pen. He looked at the pool of water. The reflection was not his own. The reflection showed a man sitting on the same rock, wearing the same dry suit, holding the same journal. But the man in the reflection was older, much older. Gray hair, deep wrinkles, a scar across his left eyebrow that Mihai did not have. And the man in the reflection was not moving. He was staring at Mihai with an expression of absolute horror. His mouth was open. He was trying to scream. Mihai looked up. The man in the reflection was still staring. Mihai waved his hand. The reflection did not wave back. It slowly raised its own hand and pointed downward, into the pool. Mihai leaned over. He shone his remaining light into the water. The pool was deep, deeper than his light could reach. But at the limit of his vision, he saw something. A shape, a body, a human body, floating vertically, head tilted back, arms outstretched. The body was wearing a dry suit, the same dry suit, but the dry suit was torn in 100 places. And the face was his own, but older. The scar above the left eyebrow, the gray hair, the deep wrinkles.
Mihai screamed.
The sound echoed around the ice stalactites, and they shattered. Thousands of gelatinous crystals rained down on him, covering him in sweet-smelling dust. He coughed. He choked. He scrambled for his regulator. He put it in his mouth and breathed pure nitrox. The oxygen cleared his head. He looked at the pool again. The body was still there, but now it was closer. It had risen. Its face was 10 centimeters below the surface. The eyes were open. The mouth was open, and the mouth was moving, forming words in the water. Mihai could read lips. The words were, "You came back. I told you not to come back." Mihai did the only thing a trained cave diver would do. He turned off his emotions. He turned on his training. He checked his gauges. He had 30 minutes of air left. He had to go back. Now, he dived into the underwater passage. He kicked hard. His fin hit the wall. He spun. He corrected. He pulled himself through the constriction, scraping his ribs raw. He reached the first air pocket. He did not stop. He dived again. He reached the passage with the glasses and the ring. He grabbed the ring from his pocket. It was burning hot, impossibly hot, and threw it back onto the ledge. He swam. He swam. He reached the vertical shaft. He started climbing. Climbing a vertical shaft in a wet, dry suit with no ascenders is a nightmare. He used a prusik knot. He climbed 1 meter, 2 meters. His arms burned. His legs cramped. He climbed 10 meters, 20 meters. He looked up. The light from the surface was not there. The shaft went up into darkness. He had descended 60 meters. He had climbed 30. His rope was wet. The knot slipped. He fell back 2 meters. He screamed. He climbed again. He climbed for 2 hours. He reached the scree slope. He crawled. He reached the corset. He squeezed through, breaking one of his own ribs. He heard the crack. He felt the bone shift. He kept going. He reached the foyer. He saw the rusted piton. He saw the message. "I saw them. They saw me. We agreed to forget." He did not forget. He could not forget. He climbed the final 200 meters. He saw daylight. Real daylight. The crack shaped like lips. the wooden cross. He pulled himself out of the earth at 7:32 p.m. on June 5, 2021. He had been underground for 58 hours. He collapsed in the beech forest. He vomited black water. He lost consciousness. He woke up in a hospital in Cluj-Napoca 3 days later. Andrea was holding his hand. His daughter Anna had been born early on June 6th, while he was still underground. She was healthy. She was beautiful. She had his eyes. The doctors treated his broken rib, his hypothermia, his infected scrapes. They asked him what happened. He told them everything. The underwater chamber, the ice that wasn't ice, the reflection, the body in the pool, the face that was his own but older. They said it was oxygen toxicity, hallucinations. He should not have pushed so deep. He agreed. He signed a paper saying he would never enter Duaguri again. He lied, because on June 15, 2021, 10 days after leaving the hospital, he received a package in the mail. No return address, postmarked from the village of Giab. Inside, wrapped in a piece of old leather, was a wedding ring, gold, engraved ADV and MCV 1975, and a note, written in shaky handwriting that he did not recognize. The note said, "You dropped this. We will keep it for you until you come back. You will come back. They always come back. The cave remembers your taste." Mihai showed the note to Andrea. She begged him to call the police. He did not. He called a fellow cave diver named Grigor Ionescu. Grigor was 52 years old, a legend in Romanian speleology. He had never refused to dive. Mihai told him the story.
Grigore Listened.
Then Grigor said something that made Mihai's blood run cold. "I know that cave. I went there in 1995. I did not go deep. I went only to the first air chamber. And I saw something. A man, standing in the water. He looked exactly like my father. My father died in 1987. He was wearing the same clothes he was buried in. I turned around. I never went back. I did not tell anyone because they would think I was crazy. You are not crazy, Mihai. The cave is real. And it is hungry." Mihai asked, "Did you see a body in the pool? An older version of yourself?" Grigor was silent for a long time. Then he whispered, "No, I saw my father. But my father's reflection waved at me, and I waved back. And then the reflection turned and walked away into the darkness. And I followed it for 10 meters before I stopped myself. If I had followed it one more meter, I would not be talking to you now." Mihai made a decision. He would return to Duaguri, not alone, with Grigor, with cameras, with a team. He would prove that the cave was not normal. He would film the ice stalactites. He would film the pool. He would bring back evidence. Andrea begged him not to go. She cried. She held baby Anna against his chest. She said, "If you go, you will die. And I will tell Anna that her father chose a hole in the ground over her." Mihai said, "I will be back in 3 days. I promise." He left on the morning of June 21, 2021. Summer solstice, the longest day of the year. A good day to go into the dark. He met Grigor at the village. They had 4 other team members, 2 photographers, a geologist, and a medic. They had 300 meters of rope, a generator, a portable radio, and a waterproof video camera. They entered the cave at 10 a.m. The descent was smooth. The team moved fast. They reached the foyer in 2 hours. They reached the scree slope in 4. They reached the vertical shaft in 6. They rigged the ropes. They rappelled down one by one. At the bottom, they put on their dive gear. Mihai led the way into the underwater passage. The water was black. His light cut through it like a knife. He reached the first air pocket. He surfaced. The photographers surfaced behind him. They filmed the walls covered in messages. They filmed the gypsum crystals. Then Mihai dived again. He reached the second air pocket, the chamber with the ice stalactites. He surfaced. He waited for Grigor. Grigor did not surface. Mihai waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. He dived back into the passage. He swam back to the first air pocket. Grigor was not there. He swam further. He reached the vertical shaft. The other 4 team members were climbing back up. They were screaming. Their screams were distorted by the water and the rock. Mihai surfaced in the vertical shaft. He shouted, "Where is Grigor?" One of the photographers, a young woman named Elena, was shaking uncontrollably. She said, "He went into the water. He was behind you, but then he stopped. He took off his mask. He looked at the wall, and then he smiled. He smiled and swam the other way, into the dark. I tried to grab him. He pushed me away. He was laughing, laughing underwater. His mouth was full of bubbles. And then he was gone." Mihai wanted to dive after him. He wanted to find his friend. But Elena grabbed his arm. She pointed at the wall of the shaft. In the mud, someone had written a fresh message. The mud was still wet. The handwriting was Grigor's. The message said, "My father is waiting for me. Tell my wife I am sorry. Do not follow. The cave lies. But this lie is beautiful."
Mihai screamed.
He screamed until his throat bled. He climbed. They all climbed. They reached the surface at midnight on June 22nd. Grigor Ionescu was never seen again. The Romanian authorities sealed the entrance to Duaguri with concrete and steel on July 15, 2021. They placed a sign in 3 languages: "Danger. Unstable geology. No entry." The locals added their own sign below it: "The dead inside do not want company." Mihai Popescu never recovered. He stopped caving. He stopped diving. He sat in his apartment in Cluj-Napoca, staring at the wall. Andrea tried to help him. Anna tried to make him smile. But something had followed him out of that cave. Something that looked like him but older. Something that whispered to him at night. On the night of December 23, 2021, Andrea woke up to find Mihai standing by the window. He was wearing his dry suit. He had his diving mask on his forehead. He was holding his journal. She asked, "Mihai, where are you going?" He turned to her. His eyes were not his eyes. They were the eyes of the reflection. The older man, the scar above the left eyebrow. He said, "I have to go back. He is still down there. The other me. He is cold. He wants to trade places." Andrea grabbed baby Anna and ran out of the apartment. She called the police. When they arrived, Mihai was gone. His car was gone. His diving gear was gone. The concrete seal on Duaguri was found intact the next morning. No one had broken it. No one had entered. But the thermal camera of the police drone showed something strange. A heat signature, deep underground, 500 meters down. 2 heat signatures, side by side. One was the size of a human body. The other was the size of a human body, but colder, much colder, almost ice. And then, at 3:33 a.m. on December 24th, the drone's microphone picked up a sound from the crack beside the concrete seal. A voice, faint, broken, but unmistakably Mihai's voice. He was singing a lullaby, the same lullaby Andrea sang to Anna every night. But he was singing it backward. The investigation was closed. The case file was marked suicide by misadventure. But Andrea knows the truth. She knows that every night, when she puts Anna to bed, the baby looks at the window and smiles, and points, and says, "Dada." And sometimes, when the wind blows from the Carpathians, Andrea hears a faint echo from the hills. A man's voice, singing backward, singing a lullaby, singing for a daughter he will never hold again. The cave did not kill Mihai Popescu. The cave copied him, and the copy walked out. And the real Mihai is still down there, sitting in the dark, watching his own reflection swim away. Rest in peace, Grigor Ionescu. Rest in peace, Mihai Popescu. And to the thing that wears Mihai's face and wanders the forests of Giab, stay away from the village. Stay away from the children. The concrete seal will not hold forever. And when it breaks, the second mouth will sing again.